Good evening, and thanks for joining us from Washington, where it is now Friday evening and Americans still aren't sure who will be the next president. Ballots are still being counted, and a few key states remain too close to call. It appears Joe Biden is closer to victory than Donald Trump. His lead in Nevada is widening. He's pulled ahead in Georgia, too, and in Pennsylvania, the state Trump can't afford to lose. A win in any of those states for Biden would get him to the 270 Electoral College votes needed to win the White House. Right now, according to the Associated Press numbers, which we are using, Biden remains at 264, Donald Trump at 214. Here's what's happening in Pennsylvania. Biden is now ahead by more than 14,000 votes. That lead is expected to grow as more absentee ballots are counted. Trump needed a win there for any shot at a second term. Joe Biden is planning a primetime speech tonight, we're told. Donald Trump has issued another statement claiming illegal ballots are being counted and saying he will never give up fighting. Our Washington Bureau Chief Jackson Proskow is with me again. Jackson, it seems we're just in a holding pattern now.
We really are at this point, Donna. The results continue to trickle in, and essentially what's happening is that Joe Biden's lead continues to grow in Pennsylvania, in Nevada, and in Georgia. It's shrinking slightly in Arizona, where he still has the lead. But in all four of these states, the number of outstanding ballots means that, in theory, if you had a huge swing toward one candidate or the other, things could tip. So people aren't necessarily making the call yet in these states, which means we continue to wait on results, which means the counting continues in this very slow, methodical process. And you've got both candidates injecting themselves from the sidelines, particularly Donald Trump, who tweeted tonight that he could be claiming victory and Joe Biden shouldn't claim victory. Of course, Trump has repeatedly claimed to have won the presidency over the past few days, despite that not being a firm thing yet, Donna. And the tension continues to ratchet up at these vote counting sites as the president continues to goad his supporters into thinking there's some sort of voter fraud taking place when there isn't.
And Jackson, the Trump team has launched a number of legal challenges. How are those going?
Not well for the Trump team, I can tell you at this point. One was thrown out by a judge for being hearsay within hearsay, in the words of the judge. Another one fell apart after the lead plaintiff essentially retracted her complaint. It was chalked up to confusion. In Georgia, Republicans said they were going to produce specific evidence of voter fraud at a press conference and then never did. And in Pennsylvania, Republicans are going to the Supreme Court to try and force the state to do something it's already doing, which is to set aside late arriving ballots and not count them. And even if they were counted, Donna, it's such a small pile of ballots, it's not going to change the outcome here.
Okay, Jackson, thanks. Everyone wants to know how this story will end, but we knew before Election Day that all the mail-in ballots made it likely the counting was going to take time. We also know Donald Trump hates to lose. Eric Sorensen looks at how America got to this point.
Donald Trump signaled months ago the war he was willing to wage to claim victory.
There's a lot of fraudulent voting going on in this country.
He told his supporters to vote in person on Election Day, and they did just that. And those votes, counted first, put him ahead. And that's when Trump wanted the buzzer to end the game.
We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
But millions of mail-in ballots were still to be counted. Democrats had urged a broad coalition to vote early to be counted later.
It's imperative that we all get out and vote. That's the message.
But would it make a difference? On election night, as states were called, there was a sense of déjà vu. As with 4 years ago, it seemed like the polls had missed Donald Trump's actual support as red Republican states piled up. By the time Florida at 12:34 in the morning and Texas was called just before 1 a.m., the first 41 states had been declared exactly as they'd gone in 2016. And Donald Trump was leading once more in the main battleground states in the Southeast and the Midwest. It was Hillary Clinton in 2016 all over again. But then Arizona began looking good for Joe Biden. And Associated Press called it. The next afternoon, Wisconsin, followed by Michigan going to Biden. And then Pennsylvania and even Georgia in the Deep South moved toward Biden. And it was clear 2020 was not a repeat of 2016. The Democrats' campaign to bank early ballots began adding up.
These are all mail ballots that are still being counted and reported out.
Joe Biden would get an unheard of number of votes. But from whom? After 4 years of Donald Trump, a broad coalition found common cause. Black voters who sat out 2016 voted in droves in cities like Detroit and Atlanta.
It's the most important election of my lifetime.
We're to heal. That's why we have to come together.
But Biden was also breaking new ground with Hispanic voters in conservative Arizona, with women in Philadelphia's suburbs, and making history in the Deep South with a cross-section of black and young voters in Georgia.
This is definitely important. This is how we get heard.
America, right now, America is very divided on identity or demographic lines. But there was a strong sense among Democrats that this is an important election and Donald Trump needs to be defeated.
In a post-Trump era, Republicans may have to adjust as populations that are diverse and growing have found a home for now with the Democrats. Eric Sorensen, Global News.
Jackson, tens of millions of Americans did vote for Donald Trump. And even if Joe Biden is declared the winner, Donald Trump is still in charge until the inauguration. Could that be an unsettling time?
Yeah, I mean, there are big questions about what the next 75 days will look like, regardless of who the next president is going to be or if it's going to be Donald Trump. It's not clear that the president, for example, if he loses, would cooperate with the transition process, very traditionally defined in its roles and the way it works. It's not clear, for example, at this point, if he would do anything to help an incoming administration settle into the job. And then there's the more practical realities of the situation on the ground here in the U.S. right now as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. The president has shown no interest in changing course, and yet the trajectory here is absolutely awful. Yesterday, 120,000 cases, more than 1,100 deaths. And Donna, as of right now, there are more than 52,000 Americans currently hospitalized. The peak continues to climb at a rapid pace here.
All right, Jackson Proskow, thank you. Pennsylvania is still in the spotlight for Donald Trump. There is no path to the White House if he doesn't win it. But it's still too early to call. And those counting the ballots know the whole world is watching. Our Mike Armstrong is in Philadelphia tonight, where the pressure is intense.
As if anxiety levels weren't high enough around the counting in this city's convention center, Philadelphians woke up this morning to news that operation may have been the target of a planned attack. This was the scene outside Thursday night. 2 men were taken into custody. Police say they were tipped off to a group of individuals from out of state, possibly armed, headed to Philadelphia to disrupt the counting in some way. Inside their vehicle, stickers for the conspiracy group QAnon. What this city also woke up to was a very tight race with Donald Trump in the lead. That flipped to Biden at about 8:50. There was, in some neighborhoods, elation, but in most, simply a sense of hope this could be winding down.
A little relieved, but still just waiting to see what happens.
Now, Biden's come from behind to take the lead was predicted. For weeks, Democrats were telling supporters to vote early, basically banking votes.
There you go.
These women worked at polling stations. They say they weren't busy on Election Day because so many people had already voted.
I voted by mail. Everybody I know
I voted by mail.
Voted by mail, so we're not surprised.
Now, the Trump campaign has been alleging some sort of fraud is going on in the counting process. There is no proof of that. They're arguing they have access to observe, but that they're being kept too far away and that corrupt things may or are going on out of sight. Even some who endorse the president aren't buying that distance proves corruption.
That's a real problem. That should be fixed. That's not right. But it's not proof that there's widespread fraud or theft. It's not likely at all.
County officials insist everything is above board. They even have this 24-hour-a-day live stream of what's going on. The mayor of Philadelphia says the charges of corruption should stop.
I think what the president needs to do is, frankly, put his big boy pants on. He needs to acknowledge the fact that he lost, and he needs to congratulate the winner.
The charged rhetoric and tension haven't been dampened by Biden taking the lead, but this state and this country may have dodged a bullet. With Biden now leading in enough states to win the Electoral College, without Pennsylvania, the entire U.S. election won't hinge on what happens here. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Philadelphia.